Welcome to the Gen Gap, where time-tested leadership meets the demands of a new generation. I'm Maureen Fitzgerald, your host, bringing candid conversations with industry heavyweights. Together, we unpack how they are rethinking talent, culture, and leadership in the face of generational transition, AI disruption, and the rise of personal brand dominance. Today's guest is Adina Krausz, CEO of InnoSource Ventures, the independent innovation arm of Toledo Capital. With over 25 years in banking, wealth management, and high-tech investing, Adina has built a global network spanning startups, VCs, and corporates. She leads a team helping businesses integrate emerging technologies while de-risking alternative investments. Her career has taken her from Deutsche Bank to FIBI Bank and across Europe, the Middle East, and the U.S. She's a powerhouse in innovation, a passionate traveler, and a bold voice in the future of alternative investments. It's a pleasure to welcome Adina to the show. Adina, thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Maureen. So nice to be able to do this podcast today with you.
I have to apologize for my voice. I'm a little sick, but as they say, the show must go on. So let's jump in. Can you tell us about your career journey and how you came to be founding partner of InnoSource Ventures?
Sure, with pleasure. So originally I was born in Germany, studied banking and finance, worked for Deutsche Bank and emigrated to Israel in 1999. I found ground within the Israeli high-tech and startup ecosystem. At the end of 2007, I was recruited to the First International Bank of Israel to Switzerland. That was meant to be for a year or two. I always like to add that at the time, the four large banks and the National Bank were actually headed by female CEOs. So that was quite inspiring at the time. And and then I found my life in Switzerland. I stayed for 7.5 years with the bank. 10 years ago, I joined a Swiss multifamily office, Toledo Capital, and eventually built the innovation department, InnoSource Ventures. At InnoSource Ventures, we do value creation for startups. Value creation means strategic partnerships with corporates, licensing agreements, distribution agreements, POCs, accelerator programs. We help with the equity raise. When we successfully work with the startups and have product market fit and operational excellence, the family office will also invest. And we are a team of, a little bit more over 20 people, divided by our senior team and then the junior associates. And I think that's also something that you said you wanted to speak about today.
Yes. Well, before we get to that, can you tell us your boldest leadership move and how it reshaped your team and culture?
Absolutely. I think that's majorly going remote. And I'm laughing myself about it because still a couple of years ago, I would have never considered remote to be an option. However, most of our work is actually happening through Zoom and video calls, Zoom Teams, and so on. And we were sent into home office because of COVID at the time. The family office was allowed to work. They had to do different rotations. People had to come in different hours and split the team. But because the nature of what InnoSource is doing and because it's a lot of international work, and as I said, anyways, happens on Zoom, we didn't get the permission to come into the office. And first I thought, life ends, right? And then we just said, okay, we have to give it a try. And it worked. And that actually led to our scale up because at the beginning, obviously, we only had a local team in Zurich, and we were able to grow and expand to the French-speaking area of Switzerland and the Italian-speaking area of Switzerland, and could this way really scale up our business.
So it allowed you to access talent wherever it was because you were. Yeah. And so have you maintained that?
Yeah, not wherever we want, because then obviously there is, the migration office, there is regulation that we have to adhere to. But within Switzerland, it gave us a much larger exposure. And I think for me at least, or for the seniors in our team, we do appreciate the flexibility. Of course, we know what discipline is, what work discipline is, and we can really manage with that. But it's definitely a challenge that people had to learn. Today, I would not want to go back full time to the office. Of course, we have meetings in the office on a regular basis, several times a week also. And then for team building, we do team events, because otherwise it would be maybe a little bit too sterile. And of course, we learned how to, train the newcomers and the team to work with us. But I think for whoever it works, they really appreciate it.
So you're getting to my next question. What have some of the challenges been as you engage and retain the younger generation? And that might get to kind of how you structured your younger workers.
Yeah. So I think at the beginning, everybody thinks, oh, this is great, right? Remote just gives you flexibility. You can do whatever you want, whenever you want. And that, of course, doesn't work. I mean, you do have to, it depends on the personality of the people, how much discipline they actually have themselves, and also how efficient they are, and if they can plan their days and they're planning their efficiency. So that's, first of all, a challenge, and that's depending person by person, but we're happy to train it. I always tell them in a remote environment, over communication is key. Just imagine, I don't know what you're doing and you don't know what I'm doing if I don't tell you and if you don't tell me. So it's very important to have this regular interaction. We do that actually a lot through WhatsApp groups within the team, the different teams. And, every morning, and I'm very consistent, 8:00, I'm sending the morning message with the updates. So what is the schedule of the day? What's expected? I'm tagging people. I'm, mentioning people, which, by the way, we can come later to, but it's also very important. Transparency. That's also important. And then I'm always CC in every outgoing email. So that's a lot. That's like 400, 500 mails. However, this way I can also follow up what's done. So it's not because I want to control anybody and that they know that. It's just like, this way it goes off my head and it's done. And it's much easier to keep track of everything. And the regular exchange is really important. And then for the more introverted people, they really have to train themselves. They have to learn it. But I think maybe we get to this also a little bit later in terms of the leadership style. So it just...
My question is, are you using AI to help you? Because that is a lot to get through and to then summarize everything that's happening every day.
I personally don't. I mean, obviously, we also started working with AI. I can give you some more examples of that. I'm very, very efficient on how I work. So I scan through this. I don't have to read all this. What I'm reading is the reports, the core reports that we get. So that's, for example, something on the AI. Until really, really very recently, I always encouraged the team not to use AI for the reports because if you did it through AI, it was not very accurate. And then correcting it took usually more time because especially people were not so concentrated during the calls. So now they, like I always said, take your notes and try to be in there and analyze it and understand also, what was really discussed and try to feel the potential. I have to say that really and it's really just in the last couple of months, for example, Zoom is writing perfect call reports. They're getting it really right, even on they cut out the small talk and they even translate it sometimes from one language to the other. So really there was a major improvement. So that's fine for me, but I still tell them, I'm sending them because I get them. I said, implement what you have to implement so you don't have to type it. And then you see, and it got much more accurate. So that's fine for me. To help, but it's like what I always say when we used to go to school, right? So at one point the teachers told us, after the summer vacation we are able to work on calculators, and we all thought, great, it's going to be so easy. We don't have to do, we don't have to calculate anymore. And very quickly we understood that life did not get easier, and the contrary. So I always say, especially for the younger people, working with AI is very important, and there has to be an openness to it, because it's not that AI is taking the jobs, but people who are open and who will work on AI, they will get the jobs. So I think it's here to stay.
Mm-hmm. What impact has AI had on, your staffing, your employees?
On the staffing and on the employees, I don't see that it had an impact so far. More on the operational side. And I have like funny, like like little anecdotes. Yeah, for example, like I'm quite often interviewed by newspapers and so on. And at the beginning, I wrote every interview by scratch, right? And then slowly but surely, I asked my team, can you help me? Can you prepare that already? And then I went over it and I put my personal touch in it, and I was very careful that nobody could really feel that it is AI and so on. And then we wrote an article together, like one of my junior members wrote an article together with me. We handed it in, and she doesn't speak German, and I needed to write it in German. So I said, you know what, let's do it in English. And then you just translate it through ChatGPT. So she did it. It looked pretty fine. We handed it in. And like 7 minutes later, we got a response from the journalist that said, and she said, you know what, I really like what you wrote, and we would like to use it for international edition and not for the German edition. Attached is the translation for your convenience. And I was laughing because it's really like the journalist obviously used the ChatGPT or some AI for the translation because it was more or less what we wrote before. So I said, okay, if they can do it, so it's it's here also to help you.
It's actually a good test on ChatGPT that it actually looked like the original.
Yeah, it was funny, and then it went on the international edition, so it was good.
Yeah, that's awesome. So can you tell us a little bit about how you've structured your organization, and particularly sort of as the younger generation come in, and kind of how you are dealing with just the realities of this, of the younger employees?
Absolutely. So we actually have collaborations with the universities and here in Switzerland with all universities. Through these programs, the interns do get credits and reference letters, which are really important, and they get a very that's what they tell me. It's very different to any other internships that they had before or have after. They really get responsibilities pretty early on. Obviously, we understand the personalities of the people. We have enough experience already to see when somebody is too insecure or whatever, but we know when we can push them into the colder water. We don't let anybody drown, but like we are there, we are helping them, and usually they manage, and they really enjoy it because what I feel that they want to make a difference, right? So that's very important for them. So they want to do something meaningful, and meaningful doesn't have to be, impact or whatever, but they want to be really do something and not just do the copying or what was in the past, the copying or the Excel files or whatever. They want to be involved. And that's really something that we at InnoSource can give them. And I learned very early on that, especially because we work with innovation, a lot of innovation, it's targeting really the younger markets, the younger consumers, the younger people. So very often something that doesn't work for me, or I don't feel, I remember a couple of years ago, like suddenly I said, like I was reminded of my grandmother who always told me, yeah, but this is for you young people, not for me. And suddenly I felt the same. And, there's a lot of kind of new technologies or things that, because I wouldn't use them. I don't need them. But they're very good for the younger people. And then I ask them actively for their opinion. Do you like that? Is that something that you would actually use as a consumer? And that helps a lot on the product market fit. And very often I see that they have a very different understanding of what I have. I mean, I come with the experience. I come with a very broad overview on what I think about it. But very often I'm not as open-minded as they are on something when I think, is that really needed? And data talks.
So you're taking advantage of their expertise as digital natives and
absolutely
for product proof. Interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
What about generational tension? Can you think of a moment that there was a generational tension that maybe made you rethink how you lead?
Real generational tension, not, because we work on a flat hierarchy, and I think that's obviously very important. You can't, but it is also the character of our business, right? So that's innovation and new things, so new technology. So, we all call each other by the first name. I'm very accessible, even though I'm the CEO, and for everybody, from junior to to the senior team if I don't need them to go first to the other person. I'm not recognized as peer-to-peer, that I know. So we have like team leaders that are, older than them, but younger than me. So sometimes I feel that it's easier for them at the beginning, especially to connect until they really realize that I'm accessible. So for them, it's like really exciting. They can get to speak to investors, to CEOs of corporates, to like quite senior people. But it's not real tension. We do see a change though. Like the people who are today like 28 and the people who are 24, 23 are not the same, even in their work. How are they different? I think a lot is also in responsibility. Like I think the older ones, they just know, and it depends also how they were brought up. I mean, it's really like you can't generalize it. It really depends person by person.
Mm-hmm. And so you mentioned that your interns or your younger employees are having the opportunity to meet with clients. Do you have to explain to clients that the goal is that these individuals will be at the company for a short period of time and you'll get the most out of them, or are they comfortable with people coming and going?
I think they're comfortable because I'm obviously very much involved, and of course for strategic decisions and everything they come to me, but they get to know the people. They work like it's like the projects are usually, they have the same project manager. Like we do split the people into the different teams. They know each other already, and I have to say they come from really good universities, and they're good. They're good. They're smart. They're good, and it didn't really. Sometimes here and there's a comment, but most of the time it's not.
Okay. And so how do you build trust with your team?
Transparency. Like I really communicate every day what's happening in the company. I don't withhold. I'm very, as I said before, accessible. I also say, ask me. Don't assume. If there's anything that bothers you, speak to me. And we have every Friday a feedback session. So that's, for example, and that's maybe also with a generational difference. Peer my age, other leadership people, they were like, why are you doing this? Like, why should you bother? I mean, you could also be respected as a boss, and what do you bother for the feedbacks? But I say, this way frustration doesn't add up. Once a week, they tell me, and it's not about like, what have they done? I see what they have done and I don't need to know that. I want to see what challenges do they have? What challenges do they go through? What went easy? What was good for them? And there you see also a lot of personalities. And here there is a bit of a problem with the generation, the frustration tolerance. So, you can always see something with the glass half full and the glass half empty, although you have that also in other generations. But through the feedback, we talk about it. Yeah. So this project maybe didn't go so well. Why didn't it go so well? And on the contrary, they get really excited when, there is a success story, even if it's a small one. And they also need to be nurtured in terms of compliments and achievements that they do. And I'm very gracious on these kind of things. If somebody has an idea, we implement it, and I share with the team that the idea came from a certain team member, and I'm trying to do this really on a positive thing. So like I'm not reprimanding people. That I realized also once, like that's maybe also a generational, how did you call it before, generational conflict. They are very sensitive on criticism. So even though that I really try to give constructive criticism, very often, like once you criticize, it takes 1 or 2 days and they quit. And I always find that very, it's a bit of a shame, right? But some of us will take it and say thank you, because really, I do it positive. But here you see that there's a lot of sensitivity on these, the younger they are. And I'm not really screaming or like telling them off or whatever. I'm just saying something, and then they come to the conclusion that's not for them. That's the thing. And what I also have, like very often, and our better interns told me this, that their friends are a little bit clueless. They don't know yet what they want to do, what their plan is. for us, it wasn't, like that was not so much the case. And when I started, also I went at the time, I think I was 18, 19 or something like that. I went to a career coach, right? Was part of the school. And then they told me actually banking, and banking wasn't something that I would have thought about at the time. And they explained to me that it has a lot to do with relationships and with people and so on. And then I went into it, and I went in there to learn and to take it in, right? And so I hear now that a lot of people okay, they're trying out this. They do a lot of internships in order to feel what really is that excites them. They're looking a lot for excitement. And it's very often what does the company really give me, and what, like we did in the past, what can we give to the company?
Yeah. Interesting. I mean, I suppose, it's probably more of a comment on the upbringing as to whether they were ever given sort of constructive criticism. But I do think what you're doing as far as feedback loop is really great advice, because you are sort of addressing things as they happen rather than letting things fester. So it is protecting your culture.
Yeah, they keep it in otherwise. And then after 6 weeks, you have an amount of frustration because something didn't work and they didn't share it. So this way, and I have a direct connection with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and for them, it's a great opportunity, to have some exposure to the CEO, which isn't often the case at other companies.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And I see this because they write testimonials afterwards, when they finish. They always there's this offboarding process, and that's what they really like, and they always feel that they really take along more than they give, and that they really learn on how business works, and much more than the theory that they study.
Yep. So what piece of advice would you give yourself at the start of your career?
Patience.
Actually, that's a good one.
Definitely.
I didn't have that though.
I didn't have that either. I'm still struggling with that. It's getting better, I have to say. With age, it's getting better. But I still have a lot of drive, and but I, with experience, with age, you sometimes learn that not everything is an instant and goes immediately. Yeah.
Okay, well, that leads me to my final question. What legacy would you like to leave as a leader in the industry?
I think, that's nothing that I'm all the time thinking of, because it's not about, I think legacy comes when, from what you really do. It's not something that you plan. But and this is something that I'm going to speak about at the conference in roughly 3 weeks for an organization about values and business ethics. So I think it's very important to implement your values and have strong business ethics in the business, and that's what's also appreciated. And I see that sometimes, not everybody has that, and I feel that, I'm not into going into the fights, because at the end of the day, I've been around for long enough. I saw, people fall on their faces at the end of the day. So if you do everything with honesty and transparency, it will lead you eventually to your goal.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
That's what I think, and I think that's what people say about me. And I hope that will be my legacy.
Well, that is a great legacy. Adina, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for our nice conversation. Until the next time.